Hello, I'm Jonathan from ijaydesigns, here to talk about a very important question. What do you name your website? It's quite a process, actually. It's not as easy as it sounds sometimes. Obviously, when you want a website, you have an idea in your mind of what you want to call it, which is usually what your business name is. So I'm going to use an example here. Just a logo I made up and a company I made up. It's fictional. Computerwarehouse.com. They sell computers. The website name, you don't want it to actually say computerwarehouse.com. The reason being, you can just see it's very long and could cause some confusion as far as spelling and anything like that. And it just looks awful when it's that long of a URL name. So the idea is to cut it short. CPUwarehouse.com. Easier to remember, easier to spell, less chance for error. So if you can do that, that's great. Do it. Go with the business name. Hopefully a short format. If it's a longer name like computer, go for CPU. Anything like that. If you can do that, like I said, great. Do it. But there's a couple things that can pop up all of a sudden when you go to register that. It can be taken already, meaning you have to go down another route, choose a completely different name, go for the longer spelling would be an idea. I wouldn't suggest it necessarily. Or it can also be too expensive. Some URL names, they're worth quite a bit out there. I've seen some worth $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 just for a URL name or a website name, and it's ridiculous, but if people are willing to pay for it and it will create some interest from visitors, then why not go for it, right? So then what? Well, you have a bunch of other options as far as how to the domain ending to your website. There's already .com. Everybody knows .com, but there's .ca, .biz, .net, .me, .info, .mobi, and it's very, very confusing. Well, .ca is Canadian. It's a preferred alternative if you're in the Canadian vicinity, but .com is always the preferred choice. .uk is one for the United Kingdom. .jp for Japan. There's a ton like that, but I would really suggest trying to get the .com. .net, I believe, is the main alternative that most people go for, but try your best to get the .com for your business, especially if you want to get established with an online presence. So if your .com is taken, now what? Well, the alternative I like to go down is, what's your site's message? What's your business's voice? What's its goals? And here's your chance to really brainstorm and come up with some great ideas. You can brainstorm with anyone. So for this computer warehouse, you're a computer selling business. So just brainstorming here. Here's a couple ideas I came up with on the fly. Buypc.com, buycomputers.com, findyourpc.com, and find-your-pc.com. And you're going to wait a minute. You're going to think, can I use dashes and underscores in my website name? And you can. There's an upside and downside to both underscores. Honestly, they're very ugly. Don't do it. It's confusing. It just doesn't look great for a website, in my honest opinion. I haven't seen any out there that really use it in their actual name. Dashes, however, I see. And the only downside I can really think to dashes is verbally explaining the site name like I did earlier. Like I said, find-your-pc.com. And if you choose to ignore saying dash, then people are just going to type in findyourpc.com. And if that's registered, then you're going to lose customers to your competitors. And that's something you don't really want. So you'll have to explain the site name. That's the only downsides I can think of. Upsides, however, make it easier to read for your customers. And it's also easier to find via search engines. This is called search engine optimization. It's allowing Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine you use and for that site to be able to find your website easier. It will take the word separately. So if somebody types in find a PC on Google, they'll be able to search it no problem. Your site will be able to come up a lot easier than if it were all one word without any dashes. Those are ideas. I'll leave you with 5 tips to go home with or start thinking about if you're trying to get a website. Number 1, go for the .com. This is so important, honestly. .com is the most used and most trusted and most reliable as far as a website name. Try to go for that. If you can go .ca if you're in Canadian soil, that's great. .uk if you're in the United Kingdom, whatever. But really try for the .com. It has this more global presence to it and a more professional presence to the name. Tip number 2, if you're local, I was saying this, .ca or .uk, it's all okay. But only as long as you're staying local or trying to create a dominant presence within your country. A global presence isn't really needed for your site if you're going down this route. Number 3, if the .com's taken, choose a message that best describes your business. So I was explaining that earlier with instead of computerwarehouse.com, if you were to go with buypc.com or anything like that. I know I had to a back and forth with a client recently about this, and there's a lot of great ideas actually that came of it, and we went with that route. I'll explain that later on my website. But we'll move on here. Tip number 4, underscores are bad. They're terrible. I find them ugly, and most other people will, and it'll make your site look less professional. Dashes, though, some will argue with me, but I think dashes are fine. Dashes are good, and they make your name look a little more attractive. I mentioned the downsides earlier about verbally explaining the name of your site, which may cause confusion in radio ads if it's missed or anything like that. And finally, tip number 5, brainstorm. You can brainstorm with your web designer, friends, family, clients, customers, employees, anybody. But brainstorming will really help generate these great ideas for a website name. And you could come up with one better than your actual business name. A little hard to believe, but it is possible, and I have seen it done. So there you are. Those are my tips and advice as far as choosing a website name. Hopefully that helps you in choosing your website name. And, of course, you could visit my website for any tips like this. I also deal with colors on website recently in a little blog I wrote over there. You can check out some of my work I've done recently as far as business cards and websites and any printing jobs like that. That's ijaydesigns.com. Thank you for listening, and I should be back very soon.